Welcome to the early tea time live stream presented by Fantasy Points. I am Hunter Vaness and I am back from Cancun this week. It feels great to be back into the PGA DFS Twitter sphere or atmosphere. I don't know what you want to call it, but it does feel really good to be back. I am joined today by my man Sam Wagman, who did such an incredible job for filling in for me over the last couple of weeks here. If you don't know Sam, he is the co-host of the Point Spread DFS betting show here at Fantasy Points. He works with Dom, of course. He also does some fantasy football stuff for Fantasy Points, and he fills in for us and does a really great job. I really enjoy reading his content. So thanks for filling in for me, Sam. How you doing today? And how did you do last week at the Rocket Mortgage?
I'm doing well, and I'm excited because this is the last PGA event that we had before the playoffs start next week.
Yes.
And I did all right last week. I managed to break even. I hit some late week prize picks entries to pretty much cap it off for me. But I had a rough week on my bets on the card. Pretty much missed every single guy placement that I took by a spot or two. Adam Scott missed out on top 20 just barely. Max Homa and Adam Svensson were both one stroke away. And Will Zalatoris, when he ended, he was in the top 10, but, he didn't finish that way because of the afternoon wave. So went 0 for 4 there, but it wasn't for lack of trying. The process was right. Just, some of those guys just waited a little too long to make a charge. But overall, we still broke even, like I said, and looking forward to capping off a nice summer this week at the Wyndham.
Of course, yeah, and you mentioned it. The prize picks have been really hot for you over the last couple of weeks, at least what I've seen. So if you don't follow Sam, make sure that you're following him on Twitter. He posts those for free, of course. And these Birdie Fest events that we've seen recently, I find them kind of difficult because a lot of these guys can fly up the leaderboard, and that can be good or bad for you. But you could shoot 13 under par and still miss out of a top 10, which is kind of crazy sometimes, or a top 22. So like yourself and me too, I'll give a little story here. I got down to Cancun and I really had this great idea that I was just going to use Fantasy Points content all week long to make my DFS lineups. And then I think on my second day there, I realized that you can't play DFS down in Mexico. So I was a little bummed there. Yeah, I don't know what I was thinking, but
I don't know if you can play like underdog or anything down there either.
I didn't even didn't even try, I guess, but I should have at least looked at it. But I was able to play some matchup bets. I think it was Friday or Saturday. I was sitting at the pool at like 9 a.m. I had 2 drinks right in my hand, and I was like, I gotta have some sweat going on today. And oh my god, when I looked later that day, all of my matchups lost. I didn't use any strokes gain data, anything like that. That's probably one of the biggest mistakes that you can do. So that was my
I feel like the most negative EV thing that you can do when trying to bet is bet while you're on vacation. Your head is never in it. You're never looking at any, data, like you said. You're almost never looking at any like actual content. You're pretty much going with whatever your booze-addled mind at the time says is good, and it's typically not.
But yeah, clearly I have 100, I have evidence right here. So yeah, booze plus vacation plus no strokes gain data is not a good mixture.
Yeah, absolutely
But
right.
yeah, lesson learned there. Tony Finau won back-to-back events here. Pretty crazy to see him and Xander as well win, a total of 4 times in the last couple of months. If you would have told me that, at the beginning of the season, that would have been one of my biggest surprises so far this season. Do you have, I guess I didn't really mention this to you before. Do you have anything that's been really memorable for you this season, or what like you said, this is the last main PGA Tour event that we have before the playoffs. What really sticks out to you when you think back on this 2022? You can go back into the fall stretch too. What's something memorable for you, or what will you mainly remember from this season?
I mean, it's a chalky answer, but I don't think anybody can go without like mentioning how, and regardless of the fact that he hasn't played much in the last couple months outside of the Open and a couple others, but Scotty Scheffler's 2022 was absolutely something to like behold. Like from I think it was like March to June, he was unstoppable. Yeah.
Yeah.
Between him and Sam Burns and the amazing stretch of play that Cameron Young has put on, I mean, some of the younger guys in this game, the way that it has moved past the Tigers and the Phils and the Dustin Johnsons of the past, 10, 15 years into this new era of golf where we also have guys like Zalatoris and, um, you know, uh, all the other young studs as well. I mean, it's crazy to watch them really take over as technology continues to improve. These courses just show little to no resistance to these guys who can just bomb it 340 yards, but also have the shorter game that you need to uh, really just brutalize these courses. So even the harder courses on the schedule, like we saw St. Andrews, and we're up here at 20 under par with the winner. Like, this is St. Andrews we're talking about. It's
Yeah.
historical. You're not supposed to see that. So to watch the way that technology has really taken its hold on the game of golf that we know today has been one of the more memorable things for me.
I think that's very well said. And yeah, when you really sum it all up, it's hard not to throw Scotty Scheffler out there right away. Again, if you go back just a couple months ago, he was the talk of golf. But we've had so many great stories this year. Of course, I don't know if Live is a great one, but it's been such a big
Of course.
storyline. Tiger Woods coming back for a couple of majors, of course. Um, Man, it's like you said, all those young guys too. I think this is one of the strongest rookie classes that I can remember in at least a while.
Hmm.
I know there's someone smarter than me that can pull up some data on that, but this is a really strong rookie class. Like you said, Cam Young, Davis Riley. We saw it with Pendrith this last week. I'm really excited to see where those guys go, over the next season. And the 2023 2024 schedule got released today, and it'll be interesting to see next year how maybe some of the bigger purses. Maybe that I don't really know if the Titan field for the playoffs will make a big impact, at least for us, in the betting impact. But it definitely will make things a little bit sweatier for those guys that are outside, on that bubble. And I'll be curious to
Yep.
see what they do with them, after next season too. So,
Yep.
any thoughts on the schedule before we dive into this week?
No, I got a chance to look at it before. I'll pull it up again real quick. PGA Tour comps. I mean, it's nice that we get golf pretty much immediately, right
Yeah,
when September rolls around. Um, and for me, this is one of my first years actually covering golf, more than just as a casual fan. And
yeah,
it's kind of amazing like how little of an off season we actually get. Some of these guys will take, a month off here or there, but we really go right from the playoffs to literally 2 weeks later, right into it with the Fortinet Championship, that second week of September. So, I mean, that's really exciting. We have some good events in the fall swing, and then when January rolls around, it's full steam ahead. So
yeah.
I'm really excited. I'm really excited for that. I think I do also want to see, some of those elevated purses and how the tour continues to try and work with and work against the Live Tour to kind of see what goes on there. I'm sure we'll see
Yeah.
more defections go over there, and, unless they figure out a way to work together. I ultimately do think they find a way to coexist
Yeah.
uneasily, probably, but still, coexist. Like, they're not openly plotting to kill each other, but like kind of in secret.
Yeah, of course. No, I like that, and I mean, we all have opinions on it, of course, but it is at least entertaining to see,
Absolutely.
people go back and forth on it, and yeah, we'll see. It is something new, of course. So
Mhm.
let's get into this week. We are kicking off the 83rd edition of the Wyndham Championship. It takes place in Greensboro, North Carolina. Kevin Kisner won last year. He edged out 5 other golfers in what was a really epic 2-hole playoff, in my opinion. And last summer, there were so many playoffs. That one was definitely one of my favorites, even though it was one of the shorter ones that we saw.
Mhm.
As far as the course goes, we go to Sedgefield Country Club. It is a par 70 track. It's the typical 4 par 3s, 12 par 4s, 2 par 5s. It measures a little over 7,100 yards. The greens are Bermuda, and they are about the average PGA Tour size when you're looking at the average green size. As far as hazards go, there's 52 sand bunkers, which is relatively low when we look at some of the other PGA Tour courses. And there are 6 water hazards, which I would say is pretty average as well. The rough is also Bermuda grass. It's just going to measure 2.5 inches long this year. And then the historic cut line has been even to -3. Last year was right at -2. So it's Monday. So obviously we haven't really done all the research possible for this golf course yet. But what stats are you looking at this week? And what else can you tell me about Sedgefield, maybe that caught your eye, or, what are your thoughts on this golf course this week?
Yeah, so I mean, this is obviously another Donald Ross course, which
Yep.
means we're gonna see an elevated, approach to putting, and these are more undulated greens again. So stuff like 3 putt avoidance is gonna be big here. Like you said, the greens are around average size. So if you go off to the left or right, you're gonna want to look to be able to scramble a little bit. We always look at strokes gained approach just about every week at this point. This is another one of those second shot courses where you really have to be on your game. But like Detroit Golf Club last week, this is a track that doesn't have a ton of defenses. It is tree lined again, but it's not really that dangerous. There's, like you said, only 6 holes with water hazards on them, and the course is not that long. So what you want to look for here is par 4 scoring from 400 to 450. Half the holes on this golf course are in that range, and then once we dive into that, you'll notice that 22.7% of the approach shots last year were from the 150 to 175 range. So we're looking at that proximity bucket this week. That was by far the most the tightly distributed shot range there. Like I said, 3 putt avoidance is going to be a big things here. So we're looking at some of those more elite putters on Bermuda grass, and then fairways gained here. So the fairways are a little bit tighter. We want driving accuracy here. So don't need as much length. Sedgefield is a kind of course that might penalize your length a little bit. So we want fairways gained as opposed to strokes gained off the tee with the driving distance.
Yeah, I think you really hit all of those key stats. Like you said, strokes gained approach. Of course, we're going to look at that every week. When we're looking at the last 5 winners, Kevin Kisner, Jim Herman, JT Poston, Brant Snedeker, and Henrik Stenson, I don't really think of many of those guys as like electric irons players, but I do believe they really just got hot within that proximity range for the week. And I think that's what we're going to look at more so than a specific, strokes gain approach stat, because you really just need to get hot this week with those irons. Because again, all 5 of those guys weren't necessarily on fire heading into the event, again, on approach. But so yeah, I think, again, approach is always going to be there. I think when you said it, though, it's, in my opinion, more important, or sometimes more important, to look at those specific proximity numbers. So I think that's well said there. 8 par 4s that measure 400 to 450 yards there. Definitely looking at that stat. I'll probably bring it up quite a bit when we're looking at golfers here in a little bit. Looking at birdie or better gain too. 5 of the last 6 winners hit 21 or 22 under par. Last year was at just 15 under, but I guess if Russell Henley could have put together a solid round 4, he might have touched that 20 under number.
Mm-hmm.
We'll probably get to him in a little bit, but I think you really hit it well on the point there with those key stats. So anything else you want to say about Sedgefield before we start digging into the golfers for the DK DFS slate?
Now let's dive right into it.
All right, let's do it. Before we do this, and we'll share the screen for our DraftKings, all the salaries here in a second. I wanted to ask you, Sam, I'm always curious, and I kind of talked to you about this before the show. What is your strategy? I think, this is how I ended my last show before I took a break there, because I think it's really important to really consider what contests you are entering each and every week, because that determines who you need to target, right?
Mm-hmm.
Someone who is playing 150 entries is probably going to be digging pretty low in the 6K range, whereas if you're playing single entry every week, you're probably not going to be extremely successful playing those really high risk 6K option guys that pop maybe a couple times a year. But if you're playing 150, right, like you can afford to throw 10 lineups on Brandon Wu and feel fine about it because he'll pop every
Yep.
now and then, right? So again, Sam, what do you do? And then we'll kind of just go back and forth a little bit on that. What's your strategy? What kind of contests are you looking to enter each and every week?
Yeah, me myself, I'm more of a low stakes DFS player. I tend to like single entry events because I don't like to dig too deep. I like to play the guys that I like. Those guys are typically, guys that do end up being a little bit chalky because they line up with the courses and they line up with the models that we create. Whether it's over at Fantasy National or on our own, wherever it is. So, the reason I like single entry is because it doesn't penalize you too much for having those guys that turn out to be chalky, in that 25 to 30% range. And there are definitely a few of those guys every week, and you try to find the leverage plays that are, 5% and below. But more often than not, those guys, as long as they hit, even the higher chalk ones, you should still be fine. And that's what I found this year when I played DFS is I'm able to squeak into min cash or even some higher finishes just based on me getting the core guys right. So for me, I build every lineup with three core players in it, trying to make sure that those guys are the key to me cashing that week. And if they hit, I typically cash, and if they don't, most of the time I don't. So and the approach is pretty similar to me playing showdowns. I put a huge emphasis on strokes gain data when factoring in my showdown percentages. I like to look at tee to green versus how many strokes they gained or lost putting the day before, and that typically works out pretty well since it's a nice little predictor. And I learned a lot of that from our guy Matt Gannon, who over at Fantasy Points, one of our DFS guys, and he's made an art form out of that. He's played some really finished really well in some events. He won a GPP last week, so he knows what I'm doing, or he knows what he's doing, and I like to follow him because he usually has the goods.
100%. Just a quick plug for Matt. I mean, if you're not subscribed to the Fantasy Points PGA package, following Matt alone will likely pay off for a full year subscription to
Absolutely
Run
worth
Fantasy
it.
Points. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Following Matt alone in his DFS plays, watching his show each and every week, I promise you will be profitable. He's really been killing it in DFS, which is difficult to do, especially week in and week out. So, yeah, quick plug to him. So, yeah, I think that's really interesting. I'm always curious on. I love asking that to people because I think a lot of different ways to win because it's golf, DFS, and
Of
things are
course.
different each and every week. So it's really interesting to me. I think, especially in single entry, you've got to just play guys that you like, and you can't. I mean, ownership is important, but you can't be a slave to it. You got to. If you think a guy's going to win, of course, you got to play him no matter what his ownership is. And I think my best weeks in single entry are when I think I had probably 3 or 4 guys that were over, 15, 20%, but I had maybe one that was 5% that did really well. And I think in single entry, if you target maybe the top price guys or some of the, long-term better golfers that are coming in lower ownership, I think that's been one of my best strategies for single entry because, there's still good golfers that just aren't really getting a lot of steam for the week, or maybe they're overpriced or there's some dumb bias about them on a given week. But again, really interested on that. I play 20 entry max. That's been my strategy for the entire season. I haven't gotten away from that too much. I think just the most important thing to do is just to stick to your strategy. Obviously you can tweak it and go back and forth, but if you're trying something different every single week, there'll probably be a week where your original strategy would have hit, but you might have been playing something different and you got away from your habits or whatever it may be. So I think that's my one piece of advice. So any other thoughts on that before we start digging into these guys?
No, let's dig right into the salaries.
All right, let's do it. So for another week, we don't have anyone in the $11,000 range, but at least we get guys up to the 10.9K, which we see with Will Zalatoris. There's 5 guys and we'll start in this 10K range. There's 5 guys that come into this salary range. We're going to start with Will Zalatoris. We go to Webb Simpson, Shane Lowry, Sung J M, and Billy Horschel. I tweeted out about Zalatoris earlier this week. I thought he'd be the top price option when I first saw the salary list there, but I honestly thought he'd be much higher than the ownership that he's coming in at right now. But it makes sense. People might be a little afraid to play a 10.9K Will Zalatoris that hasn't won on the tour before. But what are your thoughts on Will Zalatoris? Do you think he can hole enough putts to get to 15 to 20 under par, or is there? I don't know. Do you have a certain lean on him yet so far this week?
It's very difficult to gauge what Zalatoris is going to do on a weekly basis because just on profile alone, he should run away with a tournament like this that prides itself on second shot and decent enough greens. And I mean, he's one of the best iron players on tour. He's elite from this range. If we go into Pat James's proximity ratings from 150 to 175, he ranks 4th in this field. So I mean, he's elite at the iron play. It theoretically should be, but I've just seen Zalatoris start so slow the last few non-major events that he's been in that I don't have the confidence to play him at a price like this. Especially at the top price on the board, when there are more reliable players in this range that I think will come in lower owned than he will.
Yeah, I'm with you for the most part. Unless we see a really low ownership number on him, I might take a chance. But he's 6th in par 4 scoring, 400, 450. That's one stat that kind of jumped out to me. And you said as well, he's pretty solid in that proximity range that we're looking at as well. But again, I don't think he can. If we're talking about a top price Will Zalatoris, again, I don't know if he can get up to that 15, 20 under par number to go out in there and win. And again, when they're this high, because I think there's some quality options below him. Now, if there weren't, Sung J M, Shane Lowry, some guys down below him that are also high win equity guys, maybe we could talk about him a little bit differently. But I'm at the point now with Zalatoris that I'm just going to go absolutely insane on him in majors and probably stay away from him unless it's a really difficult golf course or a really long, ball striking course like Torrey Pines, for example.
Yeah.
So
I'll have him in some of my single entry lineups this week, but in any like big field GPPs, I'll be so far away from him in a week like this where he'll probably come in at 35% ownership. Like who else are you could target, guys like Webb Simpson, who has a really strong course history here, or Shane Lowry, who's one of the best iron players and putters on tour. Yeah. But I mean, there are other guys in this range that I would target over Zalatoris at the ownership reason.
I'm with you. I agree. Let's move on to one of the biggest, I shouldn't really be surprised because it's, a Webb Simpson course, but I really did not think that he was going to be the second highest priced guy.
Neither did I.
In the field this week. Webb Simpson comes in at 10.7K. I think that really creates a very interesting, question that people will have to ask this week. I had it as one of my essential questions in my article on Fantasy Points. What do you do with Webb Simpson? When looking at his course history at this course, it's absolutely immaculate. Let me pull up to be exact here. He's made the cut 12 out of 13 times. He's won. He won in 2011. He's finished second, T2, third, T3, T5, T6, T7, T8. He's finished inside the top 10, in the top 5 in each of his last top 7, in each of his last 5 starts here. But man, he has not been good recently. He's missed the cut in 3 of his last 5 events. He's lost strokes on approach in his last 3 events. And he's coming in at 10.7 around some guys that are really, again, quality golfers around him there. It's not a typical maybe Webb Simpson course where he's clearly the top golfer in the field, especially in the current form that he's in right now. I think I don't know. I might know what you're doing, but what do you think about Webb this week?
I don't know what to do, honestly. And, I've been tossing this question around all day since it, kind of was clear to me that it just, he's so high priced, but he's also so unreliable right now that it's so hard to pony up 10.7K for Webb. Again, I just think there's going to be other players in this range that have a much less ownership and are much more reliable than Webb Simpson has been lately. And I would hope the high price drives down his ownership number. I
Hmm.
think that's what's going to happen. I
Yep.
don't think he comes in at the 35% that we saw last year, per your article as well. But I do still think it's possible. He's just very chalky, and bad chalk is something that we do try to avoid in DFS.
Yeah.
So I think I will be more off of him than I will be on him, and I could see Webb just coming out and blowing this field away for some odd reason, because he tends to contend when nobody thinks he will.
Yeah, I'll confidently say it that I won't be touching him this week because he's burned me quite a bit over the last couple of months. What I see right now, his ownership's like under 7%. So I really don't
That's
think he's gonna.
crazy.
Yeah, I don't think he's gonna touch 10 because there's just such a bad sentiment on him right now. But
And his price is so high. I mean, that's
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 why.
the one saving grace. That price will be his saving grace, and if he makes it into my lineups, that'll be why.
Exactly. And I wasn't really shocked at his outright number today because
Fifth
books are
lowest
just trying to.
odds, right?
Yeah, it's
It's
yeah.
22 to 1. It's
Yep.
not bad.
Right, and I think books are just trying to cover their ass here because they know Webb could go out here and win, but I thought regardless of his outright, he wouldn't be in the 10K range. I mean,
Hmm.
at least 9, but, here's my one last point on him. Another, event for him was the RBC Heritage. And that's played out I think that's at Hilton Head, right?
Hmm.
Um and that's another web type of course, right? He's finished
Hmm.
T5 there. He's won there, T9. He's finished second. He's got a lot of top 10s, a lot of top fives there. And that was another course where we were like, yep, this is a web course. Lock him in. You don't have to be worried about it. And he finished T59 there. That was my last memory of a web course. So I'm not going to get burned by that this week, especially at his salary. Again, if you're playing 150 lineups, it's obviously a great leverage point. But if
Hmm.
you're playing just a couple of lineups, I definitely wouldn't get there. He's just like you said, way too unreliable. Didn't play well at the John Deere Classic when he was clearly the best, golfer in the field from a ranking standpoint.
Hmm.
But yeah, you said it. Unreliable is probably his middle name right now. So
Yeah.
won't be getting there. Let's talk about Shane Lowry really quick. Another guy who actually, no, not another guy, but can't really compare him to Webb, but he played really well in the spring season over in the Florida swing. He's made the cut in 3 out of 4 starts here at Sedgefield. He ranks third in approach as well. He's been pretty good at putting on Bermuda over his career. And he's also, like I said, played well during the Florida swing, which features a lot of Bermuda grass greens. He ranks third in par 4 scoring from 400 to 450 yards. Any interest in Shane Lowry this week?
Yeah, I mean, besides the fact that he's one of my favorite players on tour, just of like the demeanor, the nice Irish guy. Um, he kind of measures out perfectly on this course, and I think this is his first tournament since before the Irish Open, which was at the start of the month. So I mean, he hasn't
Yeah.
played in the States in like 5 or 6 weeks. So he's had a nice break from that course, but he played pretty well at the Open. I think he was inside the top 20.
Yep.
He finished 12th or ninth at the Irish Open, just reading the DK blurb, don't mind me. And look, he's one of the best approach players on tour. He's ranked second in strokes gained approach in this field. He's a masterful putter when it's on for him. And he's a pretty accurate driver of the golf ball. So look, I mean, he's got the top odds in this field, 18 to 1. They're not great. That 12 to 1 on DraftKings. Please do not take him there. So, but like I'm hesitant to not just throw the book at Shane Lowry this week. He'll be in a lot of my lineups. I'm not sure what his ownership number is coming at. I do believe he'll probably be chalky, but I mean, he's such a good player, and this is the kind of course that he can go out and really attack. And I'm not worried about the putting thing at all with him
Yeah.
because he's one of the best players. He's, like I said, one of the best putters in the world, and he will do. I have all the confidence that he will do well here.
Yeah, you
And the
bring up
price is nice. The price is nice.
yeah, I was gonna say the fact that him and Sung Jae and Billy Horschel, who's also won or
Yeah.
who has won on the tour this season, the fact that they are priced below Webb, excuse me, is very laughable. So yeah, I agree with you. And you bring up the putting. Yeah, he's lost strokes on putting in the last 4 events, but he still finished T9, T10, T21 in 3 of those 4. So if he can just get a positive putting performance, I really think Shane is a really safe play this week and also has some high upside as well. So
Yep.
I like him, but my favorite play this week is Sung J.M. He ranks 13th in par fours, 400 to 450 yards, third in strokes gained tee to green, seventh in strokes gained ball striking. He's had his best putting performances on Bermuda in his career, and he's finished T6 and T9 in 2 of his 3 starts here. He made the cut in his other start as well. I finished T2 in his last appearance. That was in the 3M Open. So Sungjae's in good form. He's played well in this course. He's pretty familiar in Bermuda or on Bermuda greens. And I just think he tears these kind of courses or these kind of events up that are a little bit more of a birdie fest, a little bit a weaker field as well. He did it a lot in those Corn Ferry Tour events. I really like Sungjae this week. Again, the fact that he is priced below Webb Simpson is just hysterical to me. I can't believe it. So I'll be in on Sungjae. I do think he's going to be pretty popular. Again, another safe play. I think him and Lowry are pretty safe.
Yeah, and I think Sung Jae is going to get a little bit of a break on the ownership side because I do think people will fade him due to other than the 3M Open, he hasn't had a great summer swing. So I'm happy to go with Sung Jae as well. I think again he will be very safe. He just needs to get his putting under control a little bit since it's been a little bit off the past little while. But I think he will do well as well.
Yep, good call. I like it. He's, like I said, my favorite play. So last guy in the 10K range here, Billy Horschel. He's never won at Sedgefield, but he's only missed 1 cut in 9 starts. He finished inside the top 11 in each of the last 3 years. We haven't seen him since his T21 at the Open, but a lot of these guys actually we haven't seen. At least these top guys. We'll talk about a few more here in a second. We haven't seen since the Open, but maybe we'll get a reduced ownership on some of them just because they're out of sight, out of mind a little bit. But where would you rank? How would you rank Zalatoris, Lowry, Horschel, and Sungjae? Price aside.
Let's see. How would I rank these top 5? I think I would go Zalatoris on top, Lowry second, Horschel third, M fourth, and Webb fifth.
I like it. I like it.
At the end of the day, something that goes a little bit under the radar. We all look at Zalatoris as a really ugly putter. He is, but the fact of the matter is, he still ranks third in 3-putt avoidance in this field. And there was some crazy stat. I think he hadn't had a 3-putt on like 200 plus holes as of like 3 or 4 tournaments ago. I remember hearing that one morning. It can't even nail down the accurate at this point, but he had an insane number of holes without a 3-putt that was later broken that tournament. But still, he's still such a good golfer. Like, he is by far the best golfer in this field.
Yeah,
like by far. So on a pure talent, vacuum, it's him all day. Lowry, I think, will just be the most consistent guy in this group because of his profile, with the short irons and the flat stick. Billy Horschel, who I love, I've grown to love, just the fiery demeanor, the fact that he crushed the Memorial this year. He is one of the better putters on tour and one of the more accurate drivers of the golf ball as well. And then Sung J.M., who is more hit or miss, but is still good. And then again, Webb, you and I just have zero confidence in him this week. So
yeah. Again, if he was in like the 8K range, it'd be a way different story.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm not getting there. So
yeah.
All right, let's get kind of go through this next 9K range. We don't have to go through every single guy here, but I know I've had Lowry up for a second. I gotta go back to. We got Russell Henley at 9.8. Um, again, he should have won this tournament by far last year. He had and I
Should
know
have.
he was first round leader. I think he shot a 62
He
in the
was the
first
fifth.
round.
I think he was the 54 hole, or yeah, 54
Yep,
hole leader.
that as well. And I think it was multiple strokes too. I got to go
Yeah.
back and look for sure, but
Let's see. He was he finished T7, and he was the leader after 3. Hold on. I I don't know why I can't pull it up, but yeah, he was leading by 3 strokes after round 3, and kind of just fell apart in round
yeah,
4. It just wasn't his week. Just had a rough +1, and just
mhm.
was not it. Was not it for him.
Yeah, and he had that heartbreaker that I think he missed that 3 or 4 foot putt on the 18th hole to miss out on the playoff, even not even to to I don't know. So that was just terrible to see too. Not only did he lose the lead, but he didn't even make the playoff to
Yep,
extend the
and it
lead.
was also very odd, like not Russell Henley like at all, like for him to rank in the bottom half of the field in strokes gained approach when irons are
Yeah,
by far the best part of his game. I mean, he was all the way down at just .07 strokes gained on approach, which probably ranked in the I don't know, maybe halfway point of the field, bottom half of the field. Just not great for him. And obviously the putting on day 4 did not help. So
yeah. So again, I think he's another safe play this week. Obviously comfortable on the course. I'm sure he's ready to get out there and maybe forget about what happened last year. But 9.8, not a terrible price. A couple other guys in this range: Corey Connors, Tyrrell Hatton ranks pretty well in par 4, scoring that yardage that we were looking at, 400 to 450. We have Adam Scott at 9.2, and HV3 rounds it out at 9,000. So we talked about Henley a little bit. Any other guys catch your eye here? Are you getting to anyone specifically as a favorite play?
I don't know if I can get behind really any of these guys. I mean, Connors, because he hits the ball really well. Um, Maybe Tyrrell Hatton, because he's still a pretty solid putter. Just lets his emotions get away from him sometimes. But I will. I did something I almost never do, and I backed Adam Scott last week, and it
Hmm.
was going really well until Saturday when he posted the +6.
Yeah.
And after that, I said I will never bet Adam Scott ever again. I also, that was 2 players I swore to never touch again, him and Webb Simpson. So, um, you can add them to the Adam Hadwin from the previous week that I swore to never touch again. So, yeah, I will never touch Adam Scott. And Varner's game, his game matches up pretty well here. The only problem that I see is he gets into trouble off the tee way too often for my liking, and on the course with a little bit tighter fairways and some tree trouble on each side could be a little iffy. But his approach game is always on point, and I believe he's one of those better players in the 150 to 175 proximity bucket. And he's, this is also a course that you have to play the par 5s really well. We kind of glossed over that a little bit. Both these holes are in that 500 to 550 range. So you definitely want to
Yeah.
go for eagles on them. And,
True.
one of the better par 5 players on tour is Harold Varner. So definitely, creeps into my mind a little bit there. So I think if I had to target someone in this range, it would probably be Varner, followed by
Okay.
Hatton. But I think Henley's a little bit too expensive for me, and I'm not really interested in Connors or Adam Scott.
Yeah, so I think you summed it up really well. I think Tyrrell Hatton's probably the ultimate GPP play this week. I have no clue
Mhm.
how he'll end up, but I could just see him walking away, at least with the top 5. He ranks really well in Bermuda putting, and I think he ranked well in that par 4 stat as well. And he's coming in around 7 or 8% ownership right now.
Yeah,
Corey
he's 8th
Connors,
in par 4 scoring.
really okay.
Hatton, yeah.
See, I don't know. He hasn't really played great on American courses, at least before.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Yeah, so Who knows? He's only played this event one time too in 2016, and he missed the cut too. So again, that's kind of why he's that X factor GPP play this week.
Mhm.
Corey Connors, guy we haven't seen since the Open Championship, he actually gained quite a bit of strokes putting, but he only finished T28. Let's look at his history. He's finished T22, T45, missed the cut in 2020. Can he make enough putts to get to that minus 15, minus 20 number? He's more of a birdie scorer, in my opinion, as well. But looking at his putting, he's not a great putter. He loses stroke on every surface, but Bermuda's his best putting surface, even though he's a little bit negative in that aspect there. But who knows? I think he's another guy that might be overlooked a little bit just because he's been out of sight, out of mind. I think if you're really trying to get different this week, you definitely build from this 9K range. There's some
Mhm.
solid plays, right? Like these are all quality golfers. Tyrrell Hatton, Adam Scott. I know he bit you really bad last week, but he did finish T2 last year. He should have won this event too. He had that 4-foot putt as
Don't
well in the playoff.
care. I don't care. I will not fall for the trap again.
Good old burn
I'm
bug.
so I'm so stubborn. I'm so stubborn.
That's dude. It's one of the toughest things about DFS, especially
really
PGA
is.
DFS, because they
Really
can.
is because these guys can just come out of nowhere to win
Yeah.
and score very well. But
Yeah, and Adam Scott, like he plays so many big events. When he comes into these birdie fests, I think he kind of gets overlooked a little bit. I don't know if
mhm.
people think of him as a big game hunter or something, but he actually has some pretty solid results on these
He
smaller
does.
courses.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm really just not at all sure what happened to him on Saturday. I don't know if you got a chance to watch Saturday's rounds. Um, I watched the first few holes. I just happened to be watching his group on the featured groups, and I don't know what happened. He missed a 4-footer, and
Mm.
then he bogeyed the next bogeyed the next 5 holes in a row, and one of them was a double. So he went like 6 over in a stretch of 5 holes, and
Man.
like it all started with him missing this 4-footer. I don't know if he got injured. I don't know what happened. Like I could not tell you. It was like a switch flipped in his brain that he said, "Oh yeah, I got to regress back to the mean now. I played too well."
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I think I was just checking the PGA Tour app and I saw him at like 4, 5 over for the day or something at
Just
some
kept
point.
bottom.
Yeah, terrible. All right, let's fly through these next salary ranges. We've talked a lot about these guys at the top. Let me move on to we got some decent names in the 8K range as well. Some of them has some solid win equity. Denny McCarthy is at the top at 8-9. At the bottom, we see Justin Rose and Davis Riley, who also burned quite a few people last week. I saw. I'm glad I didn't play a lot of DFS because I probably would have played a lot of Davis Riley,
I
hoping
had a
for a
ton of
nice.
Davis. I had a ton of him last week, and
Yeah,
the worst part is he was chalky, bad chalk, bad
yeah,
chalk.
that was kind of crazy. I think didn't he go water a couple times, right?
Yeah, it was literally one hole that derailed his entire round. He was 5 under. He was 3 under for the day on Friday. He was 5 under on 15, safely going to make the cut. He could have even gotten to like 6 or 7 under. He's 90 yards away from on the fairway, in the middle of the fairway on that one par 5 with the water on the left side, and he dunks not one but 2 approach shots from 90 yards into the water. Just threw away his entire
Yeah,
round, quadded the hole, finished out the day at the tournament at even par, missed the cut, burned everybody, and it was just very, very disheartening.
yeah, that's tough.
But
He has not been great when he's been ultimate chalk recently. So we'll see what happens this week. But
I don't think he'll be anywhere near chalk this week.
yeah, it's been I think 2 weeks in a row now where people have been burned. So
Yeah.
I'll talk about one of my favorite plays here, and then I'll throw it to you. Siwoo Kim, gaining some ownership, gaining some steam already on this Monday, but that's because of his great course history. He's been boom or bust really at Sedgefield. He's either missed the cut or he's finished inside the top 6 in his 6 starts here. So he actually won his first PGA Tour event here in 2016, and he said on a TikTok, I believe, that Sedgefield was one of his favorite golf courses. He's strung together a couple of good finishes recently. He's a guy that fits that strokes gain approach narrative. Let me pull up his recent he actually didn't really look great with his irons last week. He
No, he
putted
didn't.
incredibly well.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of going with Siwoo more for a course history guy. When you see such incredible, course history like that, when you're not Webb Simpson and in terrible form, unlike Siwoo, he's been playing all right over the last couple of weeks. I will take a stab at Siwoo. He's at a much more respectable price than Webb is. And he, you could argue that his last, 4 or 5 years have been just as good as Webb's without a win. I guess, no, he won in 2016, like I said. So,
Yeah.
any interest in Siwoo? Like I said, I know the ownership's getting kind of high, but what do you think?
Yeah, I'm gonna be on a ton of Siwoo this week, and I do think that the general public is also gonna be on Siwoo. I think he's probably the best one. Second to Riley is probably the second best value in this 8K range. Just for the level of golf he's playing, serious contender at the Open. Played extremely well here, or extremely well last week, and then you got to mention the course history here. You got a second, he's got a third, he's got a fifth, he's got a win. I mean, he is, again, one of the more boomer bust guys, but this is a tournament that if you're a Siwoo fan, you've had this circled on your calendar for quite a while. This is the tournament that he always does well at. And look, he's a little bit of a boomer bust guy here, no doubt about it, but I do love Siwoo's game for this kind of course. I think he grades out pretty well for everything you need him to do here, and he's a guy that's kind of peaking in recent form, so I'm willing to go for it. And again, he's better on those par fives as well, and that's going to be pretty much a secret key to a lot of my bets this week, is finding these guys who are really good at eagles gained and going for the green conversion percentage and stuff like that. So Siwoo is going to make it very high into my list of guys for my player pool. He'll be an outright bet for me. I already tweeted it out this morning that he's probably my favorite early bet. And look, he's 28. He comes in at 28-1. That is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8th best number on the board. And he's behind guys like Corey Connors and Webb and Henley, guys who I don't think he should be behind in odds due to his history at this course. So I'm gonna ride with Siwoo. I do think he'll be a little bit chalky. I don't care. I think he's, the kind of level of chalk that Webb Simpson was here last year when he finished 7th. So I will go with Siwoo.
I like it. Yeah, I'm glad we agree on Siwoo there. I think he's a pretty good GPP play. Again, boomer bust. There's a decent chance that he misses the cut as well, but at least you'll know early. So, I like that. Talked about Tom Kim a little bit in my article. I won't go over it a whole lot. I think there's some decent names in this range, though. JT Poston has solid win equity. He's won on this course before. He's just been playing well. Obviously, he won the John Deere as well. We talked about Riley a little bit. Justin Rose, I think, is a good GPP look as well. Taylor Pendrith is having some low ownership, but again, that's because of his increased price due to how he played last week. I don't really know if this is more. Yeah, this isn't a bomber's track by any means. So, not really getting to Pendrith too much. Anyone else here before we get into the 7K range?
Yeah, I'll probably take a few swings on JT Poston. He's been one of my favorite guys to bet recently. He ranks first in the field in the par 4 scoring from 400 to 450. And like you said, he's kind of one of those guys that can catch lightning in a bottle. Yeah. And if he gets hot putting, which, he is pretty good on faster greens, if he gets hot putting, you can pretty much chalk him up to a top 20 at least, because he will be pretty accurate off the tee, and he just needs to get hot with his irons. So, he's playing very well, obviously, with the win at the JDC, and then in contention at the 3M as well. So I'm looking for him to play well. And again, he comes in at 8,200. That's pretty good. I think he'll fly a little bit under the radar this week.
Yeah, I like it. Let's get to the 7K range. Just a quick note, when you don't play DFS for a week, it's kind of fun to look at ownership, because I listened to no content at all. So I had no clue where ownership was going to end up. So it was really interesting to see just how it all shook out. Of course, you had Cantlay at the top. One guy that stood out to me as soon as I saw his ownership on Thursday, I said he is going to really piss some people off when he does well, and that was Adam Svensson last week. I think I saw him at like 4 or 5% owned
Yep.
in the flop shot after he was like 20% or higher, and he missed the cut at the 3M, and then he had a pretty solid finish last week or this last tournament. And I think my candidate for this week, that someone that's been playing really well, because he was playing great before he missed the cut, so there wasn't really any reason why he should have been 4% after being 20-some% the week before. My candidate for that this week is Mark Hubbard, who was 20% last week, right?
He
Around
was my
that
favorite
range.
play. He was my favorite play last week. So I got plenty burned, had an outright, had a top 20, had him in DFS all over the place. I mean, he was definitely one of my favorite plays. He's gonna again be one of my favorite plays this week. Again, the guy is I said this last week. I'm just gonna blatantly recycle it. When you have a guy that pops in so many of the stats that you need to, you're
Mhm.
gonna end up having to play him. But you're just gonna have to rely on the fact that he's gonna be chalky because he comes out at the ahead of so many of these models that the general public is going to be on him pretty heavily. So
Yeah.
it's just whether he can do it. And after I saw his ace in round one that he absolutely despised the tee shot on.
Yeah.
Like I thought it was gonna be, this is smooth sailing. Hubbard's gonna coast to a top 10 this week. Just fell apart on Friday.
Yeah. And I didn't see what exactly happened. It looked like he was not good with his putter, which is
No,
really,
lost about three and a half strokes, I think.
yeah, and that's an outlier for him. He hadn't missed the
Very
cut
good putter.
since May. He had a couple of top 5 finishes back to back before the Rocket Mortgage. He's gained strokes on approach on multiple events in a row now. I don't really know if we'll get that 4 to 5% ownership on him like Svensson saw, which
No, I
again
don't
was
think so.
really surprising. But I don't think, I mean, he's not going to be 20% by any means. Yeah, Hubbard would be my candidate for a nice bounce back opportunity this week. We are running out of time here. Give me 2 to 3 names that you really like in the 7K range, and then we'll briefly go over the 6K range.
Yeah, apart from Hubbard, I'm going to be on Scott Stallings again, who's been a guy that I've targeted a lot lately. One of the better players for models this week. He ranks 5th in that 150 to 175 proximity. He's one of the better iron players, first in approach. He plays the par fives pretty well, 10th in Eagles gain. So I don't know. He's gonna play well. He's not really a guy that you pick outright just because he's not really good. He's not really a finisher, but he is a very model of consistency, as I wrote last week. Another guy that I'm gonna look for here is I might look to Adam Svensson again, building off how he played. We might be back to that 20% number with him, down to
So.
7.5, but he could still be some nice chalk there. Brendan Todd is the guy that always sticks out to me on courses where you need to putt well, as he's one of the better putters on tour.
Yep.
Alex Smalley for the same reason. KH Lee is a guy that I really like at 7,400. He's gained a little bit of a reputation as a guy who plays really well in these racetrack type of courses where you can kind of run up the score, and the guy who birdies the most is the last man standing. And he finished where was it? I saw it. He finished T24 here last year, was 11 under. So I mean, he was only 4 shots back. He led the field in strokes gained tee to green over the course of the event and was pretty good on around the green and total strokes gained as well. Just wasn't good putting, and for him, it's always the putter. So if his putter gets hot, he's a guy that can contend. We've seen him contend a few times this summer, so he would probably be my my back end of the 7K range. And the last guy I would probably go for is Calum Taran, a guy who I've just like to contend, mostly because he's been put in that position. He was, sitting in the low hundreds of the FedEx Cup rankings for much of July.
Yeah.
I think he climbed out of there. He finished T20 last week, played really well, some really good golf. So he's been, a big hit or miss guy. He's missed half his cuts this year, but he is a good player. and he's been in good form recently. So
I like that. Yeah, I think you brought up a lot of good names there. If I'm going full Team South Korea this week, I definitely will have some KH Lee ownership in my in my lineups for sure. Calum Taran definitely. There's a lot of good names in this range. Nick Hardy's a guy that really needs a good week to maintain his PGA Tour card. However, he might get some medical exemptions since he missed some time earlier this year. Aaron Rye, we haven't seen him in quite a while. I don't think we've seen him since the Scottish Open. Let me pull that up real quick. The Open Championship he actually played as well. He had back-to-back missed cuts.
And the Irish. He played the Irish as well. He played well there.
Okay. Yeah, and I think he could probably be overlooked as well. Again, out of sight, out of mind. Matthew Nesmith is a guy that kind of has been,
Very
when I
hit
think
or
of
miss.
yeah, hit or miss. I think he has some good results in this part of the country. I believe he played SEC college golf. Just a guy that I think can really fly up the leaderboard as well. I wouldn't be surprised to see him do well. Stefan Jaeger played pretty well last week. Joel Doman is another guy that he's always just criminally underpriced in my opinion. Pretty consistent golfer, a guy that can hit some fairways too. So
good putter too, right?
Yeah, solid putter. I'm gonna pull up Doman before we get to the 6K range and get out of here real quick. Solid. Yeah, it hasn't been great. No, he's not a great putter actually. He's really solid on approach, great ball striker, but he's lost strokes putting for the last few years here. So that's the 7K range here. Give me a couple of guys in the 6K range, and then we will get out of here. We are running over an hour here pretty soon.
Apologies for the phone in the background, but 6K range, I mean, is pretty slow. Guys like Vince Whaley, who ranks out pretty well in 3-putt avoidance, ranks 3rd in the PGA Tour this year. Could go guys like Anirban Lahiri, who's typically a consistent golfer. Sorry, a little bit off my game there. We could go back to Scott Piercy, who played well a few weeks ago. Missed the cut last week. The weekend off might have done him some well to get his nerves in order. But this is a pretty weak 6K range. John Ha is there as a guy who's played pretty well lately. Jonathan Lauer, who's a pretty good putter as well.
Mm-hmm.
You just gotta look for some value, guys. All they have to do is get through the weekend, and you're pretty good there. So, John High, I mean, par 4 scoring ranks 3rd in this field. So, Anirban Lahiri ranks in that 150 to 175 proximity bucket. He ranks 7th. Justin Lauer ranks 6th. So, I'm okay with those guys there in that low to mid 6K range.
Yeah, Lauer's been a guy that I've gone to a couple times in the last month just because he's been making cuts pretty consistently. He's made 4 of the last 5, a few top 30 finishes in there. 6-7, not a bad value there. Ryan Armour has good history here, but he's missed like 4 or 5 cuts in a row. I probably won't be getting there. Zach Johnson got puke, right? But he played well on a course last week that
boy.
All right, never mind then. Played well on a course that I didn't really expect him to, be lighting it up. It was more of a bomber's track last week, but this course should probably fit him a little bit better than, what we saw last week.
And he'll always be a good putter.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. So if we're looking at, hot putting, he's definitely one to target this week. Where is he at? Saying you'll know, before last week, he had a couple, I think 4 top 40 finishes in a row.
Popped in some models, but I mean, just didn't play well.
Yeah, and he's cheap. Again, that's kind of just what we're.
Yeah, again, just got to make the cut. That's all they got to do is make the cut.
Yep. Before last week, he made 5 cuts in a row. So just another name. So. Anyone else you want to throw out here before we?
No, I think we covered. I think we covered a lot of guys there. So I mean, we definitely got deep into some of these player pools. This is the kind of event where you really have to dig into the 6K range to find some leverage guys from those bigger field GPPs. So
I agree with you. And again, we talked about lineup construction and just choosing your contest. I think again, really make sure that you are strategizing that. Especially if you're kind of getting into PGA DFS for the first time. I think that was one of the biggest things that helped me out when I was just figuring out what to do each and every week.
Mhm.
So, Sam, really appreciate you coming on, man. Really appreciate you helping me out over the last couple of weeks as well. You, like I said, crushed it. Doing the course and event preview, and of course those round 4 articles as well. Again, you can find him on the Point Spread Show. If you subscribe to Fantasy Points, you get that each and every Tuesday night, where him and Dom break down the betting board. You can follow him on Twitter at Swagman95. Got to say that's one of the coolest Twitter names that I have
I
seen.
appreciate that.
You bet. Anything else you want to plug before we get out of here tonight?
Nah, I mean, just that like Hunter said, you can catch me on the Point Spread tomorrow night at 8 p.m. and then I will also be handling the FanDuel value picks for Dom
Yes.
this week as well, and you'll be able to find that on the Fantasy Points site at sometime on Wednesday. So we got a lot of content planned this week, and as we head right into the playoffs, and it's one of our last chances to make some money.
For sure. Well, again, appreciate you coming on here tonight. Thanks, Sam. Thanks for everybody for tuning in tonight. I really appreciate you taking some time out of your Monday night to watch our early tea time live stream, again, presented by Fantasy Points. Have a great night, everybody, and good luck this week.